Hi, it's Sam, the developer of Blood and Iron. In this devlog, I'll be showing off the RGO system, giving some hints on how I smooth the borders using HQX, plus some important tips on making complex materials in Unreal Engine 5, as well as the most diverse addition to the map yet, Africa in its entirety. But first I'll be discussing a few things about the long-term development of the project. Throughout the past couple of devlogs, I've explained to fellow devs how I've implemented the map system. I've also done some consulting with a couple of other projects and helped them implement my system, which was fun. And after considering various comments, I'd like to announce that I plan on making my map rendering system a plugin for the engine, which will be available on the marketplace. Hopefully this will help kickstart a lot of similar map games, which we can all enjoy, and I can't wait to see how people use it. I aim to get it out in the next couple of months, so subscribe to know when it comes out. Further, I plan on applying for an Epic Mega Grant to help fund the project, so wish me luck. All this will be used to help fund Blood and Iron, to pay for artists, scripters, and marketing. Now onto the map. I'll go from north to south, with timestamps in the video. First of all, the Maghreb has been revamped with more historically accurate borders for Algeria and Morocco, with Morocco having two new Berber subjects, the Tekna in the south and Blaise Siba, literally translating to a region of anarchy, where various Berber tribes swore fealty to the Moroccans, but were never effectively controlled. West Africa is currently reeling from the fuller jihads. These wars resulted in 4 states, Futa Toro, Jalon, Messina, and the largest state in West Africa, the Sokoto Caliphate. This also led to further expansion of the fuller people across the continent. I've also added a contextual map mode so that minorities for a specific culture and religion are easier to see. Other kingdoms in Africa are represented in a lot of maps as single nations, when, for example, in the Mosi or Bamana's case, they were actually a loose confederation of kingdoms ruled by monarchs of similar cultures, which banded together to face other threats. These are represented in the game by one of these kingdoms having numerous puppets representing their decentralized nature. There are also numerous smaller nations, such as the fragments of the collapsed Wolof Kingdom in Senegal. There are also quite a few European ports across the region. Culturally, there are many different groups in West Africa and Africa as a whole, from the Wolofs in the east to the Hausa in the west. Most of these, like most unclear regions, are based mainly on language groups. However, I'd like to point out that across the continent, the new Tribesmen pop is the most common. This pop is a jack of all trades but a master of none, doing inefficient jobs of bureaucrats, labourers, and soldiers. If a nation has provinces with these pops, there will be events regarding intertribal conflict to simulate various wars which happened between people from different tribes of ultimately very, very similar cultures. These pops are also huge money sinks for colonial powers, requiring them to invest in promoting them to work modern jobs like farmers or bureaucrats. Further, if a colony is granted independence whilst having a large fraction of tribal pops, there's a chance that it will devolve into complete anarchy with a multi-way civil war. I'm now going to answer some questions from my fellow developers, particularly about how I did the smoothing of the borders. It's not perfect, but I use HQX. This version of it basically places triangles where pixelated boundaries should be, smoothing it out. It's incredibly complicated and there is no point in me doing a full-step tutorial, so I put the code for it below. Just copy and paste it into a custom node and set up the params like I have. Also, an incredibly important thing when making complex materials is not using the material editor if statement, as it has a massive performance drain, as it calculates both paths before choosing one. Partly why I converted it to use the custom node, which allows the if to actually function correctly. This means I can feed a Cull mask into it that only runs HQX in bordering pixels. The nativizing the function into code massively increased frame rate, as it allowed me to use a mask to cull the function, so it isn't running on all the pixels in the scene. As usual, if you have any questions, critiques, or anything, write in the comments, and subscribe if you want to see more of this. Now on to Central Africa. There's little to no central authority in much of the region, except for a couple of native nations along the coast, as well as Portuguese Angola, and interestingly, a temporary Brazilian holding in Malango. I might add a few more nations in modern-day Zambia later on. The region is almost entirely inhabited by various Bantu peoples. I based a lot of the various cultures off the Guthrie Bantu zones, putting them into culture groups based mainly off geography but also linguistic similarity. Moving now east to the Great Lakes, we can see a cluster of small kingdoms in the region. Quite a few of these are actually still around, particularly in Uganda, due to the way protectorates were made. On the coast, there's a nation I won't elaborate on for YouTube's sake. Going a bit north, we have in my opinion one of the best looking regions in the game, that being Ethiopia. All the mountains, plateaus and valleys in the region look incredibly good on the map. It was also really nice to do the cultural province map for this region, as modern-day Ethiopia bases a lot of its internal borders based on culture. At this time, the area was going through a period known as the Era of Princes, with a collapse of central imperial authority, before being reunified in the 1850s. Now I'll talk a bit about how I did RGOs. There are currently 27 different goods, not including manufactured goods. They are split into two categories, farmable and exploitable. Provinces will always produce one farmable, and if it has an exploitable resource, it will produce both a farmable and exploitable resource. The province's farmable resource is automatically chosen based on a variety of factors given by the terrain, vegetation, and climate of the province. An algorithm then chooses the good with the highest efficiency based on these factors. Currently, this doesn't include market demand, so in actuality, it'll be much more diverse than the map shows. The farmable goods in each province will be switched to other goods both manually and automatically for temporary efficiency debuffs. This allows countries to create better supply chains and reduce foreign dependence. Exploitable resources are capital-intensive operations, representing mining, whaling, and other limited goods. Exploitable resources require building mines, to expand and have a cap size depending on the province modifiers and technology. There will also be events and decisions for prospecting for resources in non-European nations in order for them to get mineable goods in the time span of the game, as well as historical events for oil and gold. I'm going to be working on macroeconomics next and plan to use goods to peg currencies to, representing the gold and silver standard, but hypothetically, any resource, so we can get the New Zealand sheep-backed dollar. Finally, we have South Africa, probably one of the most well-recorded regions in Africa, with England having recently seized the Cape from the Dutch and the Boers about to start their Great Trek. There will be many events regarding the Great Trek, but at the start there are no Boer republics, unlike Victoria 3 and 2, which has them both at their greatest extent at the game's start date for some reason. Players will instead play as the Cape Colony, which is a separate country from Britain, and wait for an event to trigger the Boer Republic spawning in. Mozambique is what you would expect, with Portuguese colonies on the coast and some native kingdoms on the interior. Across the channel, Madagascar is split between the Emirnia monarchy and its subjects, as well as independent tribes to the south, with France beginning to influence the region. Anyway, that's it for this devlog. I hope you enjoyed it, so please subscribe and leave any comments or ideas. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.